The Chicago Blackhawks return from the Christmas break tonight with a game against the Winnipeg Jets. On today's episode, I'll dive into Alex Vlasic and Tyler Johnson being expected to return, as well as the rest of the projected lineup, and I'll also discuss Adam Gajan's roaring start at the 2024 World Junior Championship. All that and plenty more right here on Locked On Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can go and give me a quick follow on X at Jack Bushman2, or you could go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Also, quick reminder to please go and smash the like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. All of that is 100% free. It won't cost you anything and really does help me out tremendously. So please make sure to take care of that real quick. And you can also go and turn on those push notifications to get notified when the episode's uploaded each and every day. And today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks is sponsored by Game Time. Make sure to go and download the Game Time app right now. And when you do, use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off to the sporting events, concerts, or theater events near you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. First things first, just want to say, hope everyone out there had themselves a lovely holiday, a Merry Christmas spent with friends and family, some good eats, some good presents here in the Chicagoland area, some good weather. I mean, it was like 60 degrees on Christmas, which, I mean, in the Chicago area is actually unheard of and probably a little bit concerning at the same point in time. But without any further ado, we're back from the Christmas break. I hope the holidays treated all of you tremendously. Chicago Blackhawks are back in action here tonight with a matchup against the Central Division the Winnipeg Jets. And it's the second matchup between these two teams here in the month of December. Just though, as a reminder as to what went down following the Blackhawks Christmas break, though it's been 4 days since we last saw the Blackhawks in action. Obviously, the Christmas break caused a pause in the NHL, so it's been a few days since we've seen this team in action, and I just wanted to give a little bit of a reminder as to what was going down before the holiday break, because it was nearly an awesome stretch by the Blackhawks at the United Center leading up to the holidays. They had a hard-fought game against the Vancouver Canucks a couple of weekends ago, lost that one 4-3, but responded really well with a very impressive victory over the Colorado Avalanche. And then last weekend, they had a back-to-back on Friday and Saturday against the Montreal Canadiens and the St. Louis Blues. I guess the game against St. Louis was at Enterprise Center. The 3 games before that were at the UC. Either way, those last 2 games before the holiday break really could have been and probably should have been wins for the Chicago Blackhawks. In the game on Friday against the Montreal Canadiens, things were going good for the Hawks, even though it took them, I believe, 11 minutes to get their first shot on goal. They came out of the first period with a 1-0 lead, went up 2-0 with an early goal from Jason Dickinson in that one, until they kind of fell flat on their face. They gave up 3 unanswered there in the second period to give the Habs the 3-2 advantage, and they went on to add 2 more in the third period to seal the deal and win that one 5-2, which was certainly disappointing, but not as disappointing as the loss the Blackhawks put together in their final game before the break in St. Louis against the Blues. Because, I mean, I've talked about this. The Blackhawks have faced the Blues already 3 times this season, and this is kind of just the theme that goes on in my head every time the Hawks face the Blues. I want to call it a rivalry, but it just hasn't gone the Hawks' way enough for it to really feel like one in the last several years, really ever since that 2016 first round playoff meeting where the Blues ultimately won in 7 games. Ever since then, it's been a struggle for the Blackhawks. And early on in this game against St. Louis, it was feeling like it was a huge statement from the Blackhawks in their building that, you know, we have this new wave of players, and this is going to be more competitive of a battle between these two teams than it's been in the years past. And looks like the Hawks may be finally on the up and coming, because they defeated the Blues a couple of weeks prior at the UC, and then get off to a fast start in this one. Connor Bedard, how about him, ladies and gentlemen, scoring the Michigan for his 13th goal of the season, extending his point streak to 4 games. Really, I thought, put a jolt in the Blackhawks in the early going, really ramped them up in that one. And then even throughout the course of the game, in the third period, the Blackhawks take a 5-2 lead. Nick Foligno gets his second goal of the game until they absolutely crumble flat on their faces. For the second consecutive night, the Blackhawks give up 5 unanswered goals. The Blues had no business winning this game or even being in it, but the Hawks shot themselves in the foot in the final 20 minutes. 5 unanswered from St. Louis to steal this one 7-3, giving up 22 shots on goal in the third period alone when they only recorded 20 themselves for the entire game. 3 penalties in the third period, 2 of them, by the way, by 2 veteran defensemen who know better in Connor Murphy and Jared Tenorti. Arvid Soderblom also gives up a stinker for the game winner, which, unfortunately on social media, he kind of was the butt end of the result, if you will. Everyone was kind of throwing shade at Arvid Soderblom for this performance, when in reality, he made a lot of big saves in that third period. Has he still been disappointing? Yes. Was that goal atrocious? Yes. No NHL goaltender should be letting in a shot like that, especially in a moment like that. I still don't blame him for the loss, though. This Blackhawks team absolutely fell apart in that third period. Everything they could have done wrong, they basically did. And it was the most frustrated I have been in a loss this season, I think. I was ready to scream. I was ready to blow up. And it adds salt to the wound when it's the St. Louis Blues, the one team I really like to see this Blackhawks team beat, the one team that I truly have the most disdain for in the entire NHL, to go and let them come back in that building right before Christmas. It was absolutely heartbreaking. And 2 very discouraging losses by the Blackhawks in 2 games that they really should have won. That puts them at 10-22-1 through 33 games leading up to the Christmas break. They are dead last, tied for dead last in the NHL with the San Jose Sharks at 21 points. Certainly looking like they're going to be in the mix for the number 1 pick for the second consecutive year. So here we are. That takes us into tonight's matchup with the 29-3 Winnipeg Jets, off to an incredible start themselves. I think they have the 7th best record in the NHL right now, has them near the top of the Central Division, which is one of the best in the NHL. I know there's only 4, but top heavy for sure, with the Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars, and the Winnipeg Jets, all currently with the top 10 best records in the NHL at this point in time. Jets team is an elite defensive bunch. Connor Hellebuck still one of the best, if not the best goaltender in the entire NHL. Feels like the Hawks always really struggle to put up more than 2 goals against this Jets team. They just struggle so much with them defensively. And one thing I will say is it's not going to get any easier for this Blackhawks squad moving forward. I was taking a peep at the schedule, Blackhawks fans, and after this game tonight against Winnipeg, the Hawks go on the road for 2 final games before the calendar flips over to 2024. Both of them are going to be in Dallas against the Stars. One of them, by the way, is on New Year's Eve with the 7 o'clock Central time puck drop. But then after that, the Hawks hit the road for a 5, well, that's the front end of their 5-game road stretch. 2 games in Dallas, and then following the New Year change, the Hawks kick things off in 2024 with a matchup against the Nashville Predators. Yes, they're on the road against Nashville, then on the road against the Rangers, and on the road against the Devils. Those 2 games are a back-to-back. And even when they do return home, they start things off with a game against the Flames. But after that, they have the Oilers, the Jets, and the Stars. And I haven't said this much really in the last 2 years since he's taken over, but I kind of think this is a significant stretch for Blackhawks head coach Luke Richardson. And no, I don't think he's on the hot seat. I don't even think there are conversations about that. It's just too difficult to tell exactly what kind of head coach he is at the NHL level yet, because the roster the Blackhawks have had since he's taken over have been underwhelming, without a doubt. But what I will say is this Blackhawks team, everyone who knew what was going on knew this Blackhawks team was not going to be good this season. The injuries haven't helped them. That's a big part as to why they're dead last in the NHL right now. But at the same point in time, I have thought they've underwhelmed in certain areas. And probably the biggest one, and maybe this is recency bias, but it's also kind of been a thing for the Blackhawks all season long is, man, it just feels like whenever they have a lead in the third period, even when they do hold on to win, it isn't pretty. The teams they're facing come with a huge surge, a huge push, usually late in the game. And a lot of times the Blackhawks have blown leads here in the third period, or when they have leads going into the second period, they have a terrible middle frame. And listen, I'm not, solely blaming Luke Richardson. At the end of the day, the players are the ones who have to go out there and execute whatever he's preaching. But there are still some things that have left me a little bit frustrated with Luke Richardson this season. And one thing against St. Louis, it felt like a timeout really could have benefited the Blackhawks in that situation where they're absolutely crumbling in the third period. And there have been some lineup decisions that I personally don't agree with as well. And look, I don't think the Blackhawks have to go out there and go 500 in this next 8-game stretch against some of these teams, but it's more so that in situations where the Blackhawks find themselves in spots where they can win games, I feel like there's still another step for this team to go. And Luke Richardson just hasn't been able to find a way to consistently have that team ready to do that. They just haven't been able to do that in those situations. And we can't really rely on them in spots like that because they've shown time and time again that they will absolutely crumble down. And it's probably a combination of both the players and what Luke Richardson is doing. But at the same point in time, we want to see some progress. Yes, we knew the Blackhawks were going to be bad, but did we think they were going to be, right there in the mix with the worst team in the NHL again? Yes, I know the injuries have led to that, but I still think there's more that we can get out of this group. And it's just situations where they actually have chances to win and they've put up good fights up to those points. They haven't been able to close it out. They haven't been able to get to that finishing stretch. And those are signs of young teams as well. And the Blackhawks certainly are one, but I just think Luke Richardson, man, there are just spots where it feels like the Blackhawks are capable, but they're not getting the job done. And I know it's a weird situation for this team to kind of be nitpicking at the head coach, but I feel like I'm not the only one here. And there just have been some spots where it feels like it's apparent that Luke Richardson is still a young head coach himself. There are a lot of things I think he's done a great job at, but there are still some spots where I think the Blackhawks are capable of doing more and they haven't reached that point yet. So it would be nice just to see the Blackhawks be able to pick up where they left off in those two games in the front halves of them, where we are right now. Like, even though there were some terrible finishes to those games, the Blackhawks still did a lot of good leading up to the Christmas break. I mean, 5 goals in that game against the St. Louis Blues. They had 13 goals total in the 4-game stretch before that. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but for this Blackhawks offense, that's pretty significant. So there are still some things to build off of despite, having 2 very frustrating losses leading up to the Christmas break. Hopefully the Blackhawks can kind of take snippets of the good and kind of brush out the bad, because I do think they are capable of achieving more than they have at this point in time. And it's frustrating to watch them underwhelm and absolutely fall apart right in front of my very eyes. That game against the Blues, like I said, it was probably the most frustrated I've been this season, to watch the Blackhawks melt down like they did for the second consecutive night and give up 5 unanswered 2 games in a row. It was painful to watch. And I think it's hard to not go and look at the head coach when something like that happens. So do I think Luke Richardson is on the hot seat? Do I think he's under the scope? No, but there are still some things I'd like to see in terms of improvements from this Blackhawks team in certain areas. And I do think they're capable of achieving that. They just ultimately have to go out there and do it a little bit more consistently. All right, there are some updates on what's been going on with the Blackhawks prior to the Christmas break, leading into tonight's game against the Winnipeg Jets. Coming up in just a moment, I will get into the Hawks' projected lineup, and stay tuned later in the episode when I get into Adam Guyan's roaring start at the 2024 World Junior Championship. But first, I got to talk to you all about Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry or stress when buying tickets to the next big event, and Game Time is the fast and easy way for you to buy tickets to all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And I personally have been using Game Time for probably close to a decade now, since I was back in high school going down to the United Center to see Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, Marian Hossa, Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, all those Blackhawks legends. Game Time has always been the reliable source that I trust to get all of my tickets, whether I'm going to games in Chicago, going to see the Blackhawks, or going to see the Cubs down at Wrigley Field, or even if I'm visiting other cities. Game Time is also the easy way for me to go and see a concert. I just used it in Las Vegas a couple of months ago to go and see a show. It's always fast, reliable, and cheap. And I also love how they send you pictures from every seat in the house so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. I highly recommend you go and download the Game Time app right now. And when you do, make sure to create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off on your first purchase. Again, you can go and get $20 off to see Connor Bedard at the United Center this season. All you have to do, download Game Time, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Game Time. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, the Blackhawks face off with the Winnipeg Jets here tonight at the United Center. That's an 8 p.m. Central Time puck drop. The second time these two teams meet here in the month of December, and you can catch all of the action of the Blackhawks hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Blackhawks. Segment 2, let's dive into, per usual, what we could see out of the Blackhawks lineup tonight when they return to action against the Winnipeg Jets. First, though, I do want to let you all know some more injury returns look like is going to be happening for the Blackhawks here this evening, which is certainly a good sign. Alex Vlasic and Tyler Johnson both took part in the Blackhawks morning skate. And just about 20-30 minutes ago, Luke Richardson spoke with the media and confirmed that they are both going to be making their returns in the lineup. And that's huge. And it's been so nice to finally see the Blackhawks kind of be on the right side of the injury bug, starting to get healthier and starting to get some guys back. And of course, on Friday against Montreal, the Blackhawks got Philip Kurashev, Kevin Korchinski, and Jared Tenorti back. That's certainly going to help out their back end. And now here tonight, another key defenseman in Alex Vlasic, who as a rookie has arguably been the Blackhawks' best defenseman this season and has certainly been one of the bright spots so far this year. And they also go and get Tyler Johnson, a key veteran forward and leader in the locker room, back as well. So really nice to see the Blackhawks starting to get some of these guys back. And we also got a couple of more updates from Richardson on some of the players who are also still out. As far as the status goes for defenseman Seth Jones, looks like he's going to start skating here in the next couple of days when the Blackhawks go on their road trip to Dallas. But as far as when we could see him back in the lineup, I doubt it happens while the Blackhawks are still on the road. So maybe when the calendar switches over to 2024 and the Blackhawks return home for that game, like I mentioned, against the Calgary Flames, I think that could be a good potential spot for Seth Jones to return, or maybe the game prior when the Blackhawks wrap up their road trip against the New Jersey Devils. Joey Anderson was also placed on injured reserve prior to the Christmas break. All signs point towards him skating here relatively soon as well. And unlike Jones, it seems likely that he's going to play at some point during the road trip, maybe even before the Blackhawks head out east, could return possibly in one of those two games against the Dallas Stars. The only bad news is Andreas Athanasiou still doesn't have a timeline. And man, what a roller coaster ride it's been for his injury status over the last couple of months now. I mean, I think it was a month ago at this point where Luke Richardson said he was going to resume skating and he had been working out in the gym. Unfortunately, he had his gym workouts shut down and wasn't really able to do all that much. Richardson did say that we finally got some positive news about like a status on his groin, and sounds like he could be resuming gym workouts sometime in the near future, but still not skating, and still sounds like he isn't close. So Andreas Athanasiou probably still out for at least another couple of weeks, which is just so crucial because the Blackhawks really could use his speed in that forward group right now. So tough news for Athanasiou, but at least the Blackhawks have some positive news on a lot of other players on their roster at this point in time. As far as the lineup, what we could see tonight looks like Richardson has hit the blender button once again as Connor Bedard is skating on the top line with Philip Kurashev. He and Bedard reunite once again after Kurashev was on the second line in the last couple of games, while Bedard was skating on the top line with Lukas Reichel and Ryan Donato. Both of them, kind of interestingly enough, have been demoted from the Blackhawks top line, which don't really know how to feel about that. Looks like Nick Foligno has been bumped back up, and he'll play with Bedard and Kurashev. One thing I will say, Nick Foligno, when he has played with Connor Bedard this season, has been relatively good. He's made an impact on the power play too, and now has 3 2-goal games on the season. It feels like, I was just thinking this. I don't know if any Blackhawks fan remembers this or had the same thought, but going back to, I think it might have been 2010 when they won the Cup, or it might have been the year before, but I do want to say it was when they won the Cup for the first time in 2010. John Madden, when they acquired him from the New Jersey Devils, I remember every time he scored 1 goal, it felt like he scored 2. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't every time, but more often than not, when John Madden got 1, he was going to find the back of the net for a second time. It feels like that's kind of passed over a decade plus later to Nick Foligno. I do like how he's fared on the top line when getting an opportunity with Bedard, but again, me personally, I'd like to see Lukas Reichel up there, but no complaints about the top line, even though Reichel isn't there. The one complaint I do have is he's not in the top 6 either, as it looks like the Blackhawks will roll with the second line of Anthony Beauvillier. Jason Dickinson has gotten the bump up since he isn't skating with Nick Foligno, and Taylor Radish remains on the second line at the right wing spot, as he basically has all season long. 3 assists game for Taylor Radish in that loss against the St. Louis Blues. Kind of got forgotten about, but his second career 3-point game, nice showing from him recently after a pretty quiet first half for the most part. Third line looks like it's going to be Ryan Donato. Tyler Johnson will make his return centering the third line. And then Colin Blackwell, who has just been an absolute menace since returning the lineup. Looks like he'll be playing on the right wing. He has had a lot of pep in his step, a lot of energy since making his return, which has been great to see. The Blackhawks have needed that out of their forward group, so he's provided a nice little spark. And then Lukas Reichel looks like he's going to be skating on the fourth line once again with Mackenzie Entwistle and Reese Johnson, while Cole Gutman is the healthy scratch. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably sound like a broken record. I just don't understand Lukas Reichel going down there. And also another kind of interesting coaching decision. The Blackhawks against the Blues, I believe it was, Reichel was down on the fourth line in that one as well. And that line didn't play at all in the third period. And the reasoning for it was because Coach Luke Richardson felt like they weren't having a good night, despite all the analytics suggesting they were one of the most, if not the most effective line for the Blackhawks. Yes, in limited ice time, but another frustrating thing is just the handling of Lukas Reichel. I don't understand it, man. I just don't understand it. I get what he's trying to do. I don't think we're going to see the results of it right here, right now. And maybe he's thinking long-term, but I think in the meanwhile, Lukas Reichel's confidence is probably getting rattled. I thought he had a couple of good games there in a row, but I guess the consistency pissed off Richardson. Yeah, that's just not going to sit right with me for as long as it happens. I've said it multiple times on the show. Lukas Reichel, if he's in the lineup, shouldn't be playing on the fourth line. I don't understand it. And if Cole Gutman's up here, why are we scratching him consistently? Like, that I don't really understand either. Reese Johnson, Mackenzie Entwistle, I like them. They're 2 good depth pieces. I don't think they should be in the lineup consistently over Cole Gutman. That is what it is. Again, probably sounding like a broken record, but a couple of lineup decisions that I personally do not agree with here. And then on the back end, Alex Vlasic, like I mentioned, is going to be returning. Looks like he's going to be doing so on the Blackhawks, top pairing with Connor Murphy. Isaac Phillips had been in that spot previously prior to Vlasic's return, but it looks like he's now going to be playing on the off wing with Jared Tenorti on the left side of the second pairing, and that leaves Kevin Korchinski and Nikita Zaitsev together on the third pairing, while Louis Crevier is the healthy scratch on the back end. And whenever Seth Jones does return, I don't think it's much of a question. Louis Crevier absolutely is the one going to Rockford. Isaac Phillips, I think you got to be playing him regularly. I know this is making me sound like a broken record as well, but he's undoubtedly one of the Blackhawks' top 6 defensemen in the organization right now, in my mind, and should not be getting scratched over Nikita Zaitsev and Jared Tenorti. Then in net, Peter Mrazek going to get the start, which is good for the Blackhawks. That means they actually have a shot at winning because Arvid Soderblom can't beat anyone but the Toronto Maple Leafs this season. It continues to be a struggle for him, but he's going to have to go probably one of those two games against the Dallas Stars, whether that's New Year's Eve or on Friday when they face them for the first time. Will be interesting to see which one he gets to go. And then as far as my 3 keys to victory for the Blackhawks tonight, first and foremost, I think it's just make the most out of this little fresh start. Because, like I said, a lot of bad happened leading up to the Christmas break, but there were also a lot of good. And wipe the slate clean, try to build off of the positives. I think that's all the Blackhawks could do. No need to dwell on the lead blowing, but it's something that they can certainly learn of. But still, remember, there were lots of good that went into those situations before the absolute meltdowns in the latter stages of those 2 games. My second key is for the veteran guys just to start acting like veterans. This has been a key for me a couple of times this year, but I continue to think it's something that costs the Blackhawks, is especially their veteran defensemen just haven't acted like it this season. Connor Murphy, I do think he's been a little bit better in the last couple of weeks, but did not have a good game on Saturday night against the St. Louis Blues. Costly penalty there in the third period. It was on the ice for a couple of goals against. Jared Tenorti took a bad penalty as well. And as I mentioned in segment 1, this is a elite Jets defense along with Connor Hellebuck in net. The Blackhawks seemingly always struggle to pot goals against them. So I think taking bad penalties is going to make life significantly harder for the Blackhawks to keep up with the Jets in this one. So for me, it's the veterans making veteran-like decisions. And then my third key is for the offense to keep trending in the right direction. The Blackhawks offense and the power play, it's been nice to finally see just more than 1 goal performances. I mean, it's been rather nice. The Blackhawks have scored 13 goals in their last 4 games. Let's build off of that. Let's continue to have this offense trend in the right direction and go in that way, because it certainly makes this Blackhawks team more watchable, and obviously it also keeps them in games when they're able to score more than 1 goal on a nightly basis. All right, there are my final thoughts ahead of tonight's matchup with the Winnipeg Jets. Coming up in just a minute, don't go anywhere, Blackhawks fans, because I still have to get into a quick update on the first 2 days from the World Junior Championship. But first, I need to talk to you all about FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. Yes, you heard me right. That's $150 if your team wins outright with just a $5 bet. So if you've been thinking about signing up for FanDuel, there's legitimately no better time to get in on the action right now, because football season is starting to heat up. We're just 2 weeks away from the start of the playoffs, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all regular season long. All you have to do is pick any team to win on the money line with a $5 bet, such as the Ravens, the 49ers, the Broncos, the Browns, whoever your team may be. If they come through, you'll win $150 in bonus bets for the victory. And you can use these bonus bets to bet on anything from the money line to point spreads, over-unders, player props, and much, much more. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, what I love about FanDuel is when you win, they pay you out instantly, unlike some other sports books out there. Go and sign up for FanDuel right now by visiting FanDuel.com/lockedon to start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sports book. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official partner of the National Football League. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Still tuned into this point of today's episode. Let me just say thank you very much. I really do appreciate all of your support. And if you haven't already, please make sure to go and smash the like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel for your boy. And also, make sure to go and check out the new Locked On Sports today, because Locked On has launched the first ever 24/7 sports streaming channel on YouTube. And Locked On Sports today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports today and subscribe to the first ever 24/7 sports streaming channel on YouTube. All right, segment 3, the 2024 World Junior Championship, something that I've been previewing here on the show for the last couple of weeks, is officially underway in Gothenburg, Sweden. The tournament just kicked off a little over 24 hours ago, and I already have some great updates to get into on the 6 Blackhawks prospects that are taking part in the tournament. Of course, I'm talking about Martin Misiak and Adam Gajan for Slovakia, and then Frank Nazar, Oliver Moore, Gavin Hayes, and Sam Rinzel for the United States. First thing I need to talk about, though, is what a start Adam Gajan has gotten off to in net for Slovakia. They actually had the first game of the tournament yesterday morning up against Czechia, and Gajan was a huge part of getting the job done, leading the Slovaks to the 6-2 win over the Czech Republic, stopping 27 of the 29 shots that he faced. Martin Misiak, who, by the way, is centering the Slovaks' second line with Dalibor Dvorsky, first-round pick for the St. Louis Blues, and Alex Chirnik, like I expected. I talked about that a couple of days ago. And then the Slovaks had a very quick turnaround with another game earlier this morning against Switzerland, and Gajan was even better, standing on his head to pitch a 36-save shutout in net to help them pick up the 3-0 victory. He's now stopped 65 of the 67 shots that he's faced to help Slovakia get off to a 2-0 start, picking right up where he left off in the World Juniors last year, where he helped the Czech Republic or Slovakia, go out there and kind of shock everyone, put up a good fight against Connor Bedard and Team Canada. They're off to a phenomenal start here in the World Juniors, and Gajan just continues to be tremendous since the Blackhawks made him the first goaltender off the board in last year's draft. Currently in the USHL with the Green Bay Gamblers, he's 14-4-2 with a .303 goals against average and .911 save percentage in 20 starts this season. Continuing to be a standout in the World Juniors. If he continues to play like this, Slovakia could be the sleeper of the tournament, like I kind of predicted them to be. We'll see if that continues to be the narrative. For Team USA, they also had their first game of the tournament yesterday against Norway. And great news was all 4 Blackhawks prospects wound up cracking the lineup. Frank Nazar was the one who had the most significant role, as expected, centering the United States second line with Isaac Howard of the Tampa Bay Lightning and Gavin Brindley of the Columbus Blue Jackets, who also plays for the Michigan Wolverines. Gavin Hayes snuck into the lineup on the fourth line with Danny Nelson and Quinn Finley. Oliver Moore was used as the 13th forward, so looks like he's on the outside looking in at this point in time. Very limited role for him in their opening game. And then Sam Rinzel, love to see him sneak his way into the third defensive pairing with Zeev Buim from the University of Denver. He was not used as the extra defenseman like I kind of predicted in the last episode. The United States didn't have the beatdown over Norway like some expected them to, but still a nice 4-1 win. Frank Nazar had a primary assist in that one with 2 shots on goal, was also +2 in 12 minutes and 2 seconds of time on ice. Gavin Hayes added 1 shot on goal in 9 minutes and 25 seconds on the fourth line. Oliver Moore only skated 4 minutes and 56 seconds. We'll see if his role expands at all throughout the course of the tournament. And then Sam Rinzel on the third pairing had 2 shots on goal and played 12:33 as well. Next up for the United States tomorrow, they're back in action with a game against Switzerland. That's a 10 a.m. Central Time puck drop. And then Slovakia is back in action on Friday against Norway. Great start to the World Juniors for a couple of Blackhawks prospects. Slovakia is 2-0. The United States are 1-0. And hopefully I'll continue having updates like this, discussing very positive news from these Blackhawks prospects in Gothenburg, Sweden, taking part in the 2024 World Junior Championship. All right, that is going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for tuning into the show, and be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcasts, and to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. That way you can get the latest episode as soon as it becomes available each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Go and give me a follow on X at JackBushman2, or you can go and check out my strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until tomorrow's episode, that's going to do it here for the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.